this computer. Okay, so
I'll shift over here so I can show my face as well.
So if you could go ahead and just sort of introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, name's Martin Lowrimore, graduated from the University of Oklahoma, obviously. Last year, the COVID year, still technically haven't actually walked yet, but looking like I'm able to finally. Took a job at 4029 in Rogers, Arkansas, just the DMA right over to the east of the Norman and Oklahoma City DMA. So I'm not really that far away, but I picked up the weekend meteorology job. I have done pretty much everything here already. I have done every weather shift, and I haven't even been here a year yet because they started me in the mornings, put me on evenings when our evening meteorologist left, and then put me back on mornings when we picked up another person. And I've done both, not yesterday, 2 days ago, I did the big shift, the evening weekday shift. I've done mornings quite a bit, but took in the broadcast element probably when I went to OU, got involved OU Nightly, was a briefer for a year and a half, and I was a anchor for a year. So OU Nightly was a huge part of OU for me. Didn't really have an intention to do broadcast before getting to OU, actually. So it's kind of like a spur of the moment thing. And also picked up that broadcast minor that the College of Gaylord College of Journalism offers. So definitely a lot taken out of OU for sure. That's pretty much what I do. I haven't really been able to do a whole lot. Storm season is just now kicking up, so we're starting to get on the busier side, but we're already starting to see signs of that.
Great. So one thing that we got quite a few questions about was, what does your average day whenever you go in look like?
Average day, I can give you both. I can actually give you both scenarios for that, both in the mornings and the evenings. When you start your day, you go in there, you boot up all your models, you boot up all your MOS datas, and you just forecast for probably about the first hour. No matter what my shift is, my first hour is probably 95% just forecasting. That's just the average day. This is saying that there's not any severe weather in the immediate area or say the next day or so. So usually things are pretty chill. You get your forecast done in about an hour. In the evenings, especially on the weekday evenings, that's usually filled by the chief job. You do cut-ins, not cut-ins, what we call topicals, where you pre-record like a 15-second blurb of news and then weather, and that gets sent out to like kind of promo the 5 and 6 shows, and then you will do recordings for social media like Facebook, the website, your company website. That's what we usually do, and maybe Twitter if you have enough time. So you'll do a forecast for each of those, basically the same graphics, essentially just worded a different way, saying, this is the Facebook forecast, this is the Twitter forecast, this is your web weather. So just different aspects thrown in different ways. Usually by about that time, you'll have radio done. So you'll do a little 30-second little blurb. Our market is kind of like a split market a little bit. We've got Northwest Arkansas, and then we have Fort Smith. And the difference between Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley is different enough, especially in winter weather, that we have to do double forecasts. And I'll get into that a little bit later if that's something that's a little more interesting. But then it comes about the time where you're usually at either the 6 a.m. or the 5 p.m. shows. So you're doing your live shows. Sometimes you're still doing a little bit of forecasting, putting graphics together as you're going, especially if it's a little on the busier side. Most of the time, all the graphics are done and everything. And during the show, you're pretty much just big chilling for at least a little bit, or you're doing other things for social media or anything like that. In between the shows, there's a couple other things you got to do. We have the thing called the 4-degree guarantee we do on the evenings. Basically, you take a place, pick what the high is going to be. If you're within 4 degrees, you got it. And it's basically a 9-degree guarantee, not really a 4-degree, but we call it the 4-degree guarantee. do your second show in the evening, and then you have your break. Mornings is a little different because you have 2 shows and you're done. In the evenings, you have 2 shows, bit of a break, and then 2 shows at the very end. So your mornings is usually starting out your day, forecasting. In the middle of your shift, you're doing your newscast. So we got in my weekend shift, the one that is my shift. We usually will I'll get in at 3 a.m. Forecast. Most of the time I'm done in an hour, get radio done and all that stuff. And I just talk to my anchor for a little bit. And then we have the 6 a.m. and the 8 a.m. shows. And then I take my break. I'll do little extra things that we do. We have a thing called Sunday Science that usually I put together on the weekends. That usually fills my spare time on Saturday and Sunday. Evenings is a little weirder because you have less time to forecast in the earlier part of your day because you're getting there like 1:45, 2 o'clock, and then your first show's at 5. So you have the 5, you have the 6, you have your dinner that you usually take, and then you have your 9 and your 10. So, and also you're doing also other little things, mainly for social media. Really big has been social media has been really big for what we've been trying to do is do minimum, we have to put out 4 Facebook posts and 10 Twitter posts. That's our company policy for every day. So 10 Twitter posts and 3 Facebook posts. Do I usually fill that? Not really, but especially on really boring weather days. But social media has been a really big thing that usually fills the time, especially on the severe weather days where you're just like putting out a radar update. You just like radar update 7:41. That was thunder. 7:41 p.m. Quick little blurb and then post out the recent radar loop. So social media is usually a thing that fills up your time, and you spend a lot of that time forecasting and talking with your producers.
Cool. So you mentioned that double forecast. Would you mind explaining a little bit more about what that is?
So our market is very unique. We've got 5 main cities. We're the only market in the entire U.S. where we have 5 cities. We have that is integrated in our market. That's Fort Smith, Springdale, Fayetteville, Rogers, and Bentonville. Now, Bentonville and Rogers and Fayetteville and Springdale are kind of all in the same place. It's in Northwest Arkansas. Essentially, when you go on I-49, you hit all 4 of those cities in a 20-mile span. But then you have Fort Smith. Fort Smith is a bit of an anomaly because before Walmart, Northwest Arkansas was not very big. Everybody was in Fort Smith. Back in the 70s, back in the 60s, there were 2 stations, 40, which is us, and 5. That's the legacy station that's existed since the 50s. And it was all in Fort Smith. Fort Smith was a military, or it was a fort, obviously, in like the 1800s. And that's been a very long-standing and a long-developed city. It's still, as of right now, the 2nd biggest city in Arkansas. I'm not going to be staying that way for long, as Fayetteville's getting very close to it. But you've got around 100,000 people in Fort Smith, and you've got about 350,000 in Northwest Arkansas. If you're counting, everyone in Northwest Arkansas. So a lot of people have been moving to Northwest Arkansas just because of the opportunities provided by Walmart, and now a bunch of other companies are moving up here to Northwest Arkansas. So the biggest difference between the 2 is elevation. Elevation is huge. We are sitting right now, I believe I'm sitting at about, I don't want to lie. Let me take a quick look what my elevation is right now. Elevation here in Rogers is 1,332 feet, right where I'm sitting. And in Fort Smith, I know that the elevation is about 300 feet. So you've got about 1,000-foot difference. So if you want to break down standard lapse rates, you're looking at 7.8 or 9.8 degrees Celsius difference on a standard day. Granted, it's never a standard day, but section is it the Celsius or Fahrenheit? It's something, there is a difference between the elevations. It's also a lot more humid in the river valley. There's a lot more vegetation, so it's a lot more humid. Summers are a lot more egregious in the river valley. And we get a lot of systems come through here where we will get, we got an 8-inch snowstorm in Rogers, and Fort Smith got cold rain. So forecasts are vastly different sometimes for both Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. In most scenarios, the only difference is temperature. But it's just that the two population centers are so far away that you can have systems, like the system we're expecting today. I think we put a severe day for Northwest Arkansas because of flash flooding. River Valley is not expecting to get over an inch of rain. So it's not really double the work, I would say, but it's definitely more that you have to consider because, instead of a single point forecast, like say a friend of mine, she lives in Baton Rouge. She just has a forecast for Baton Rouge and that's it. But we've got a forecast for Fort Smith. Fort Smith is a simple point forecast, but then you've also got Northwest Arkansas. The population is very spread out because you've got Fayetteville with 70,000 people, Springdale with 50,000 people, Rogers with 60,000 people, Bentonville with 50,000 people. It's not a single point. And we've got stations both in Fayetteville and in Rogers. So it's not really a pinpoint forecast when it comes to doing like the 7-day or something like that. It's more of taking an average of Rogers and Fayetteville to see what is going to be the forecast for Northwest Arkansas. And then you have Fort Smith, which is the River Valley. So it's a little more on the complicated side, especially when putting together a 7-day forecast, because you've got two of them. So we actually run standard 2 7-day forecasts, which is probably the most unique thing about us. I'm pretty sure there's some other markets that do it, but I have yet to see them do multiple because, normally it's like Oklahoma City, Austin, something like that, where it's just one city is what you talk about in the 7-day forecast.
Interesting. Yeah, honestly, I don't think I've ever heard of anything like that.
Yeah,
either,
no, that's actually very interesting. Has that been a very challenging part of your work there, or have you gotten accustomed to it over time?
Here's the thing. I grew up here. I didn't grow up in Northwest Arkansas. I grew up in the River Valley, so I kind of been already accustomed to double 7-day forecasts, and I knew what to expect.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
I'm gonna take this off. I turned off Siri like 3 times on my watch, and she keeps coming back to life. But I've kind of already been accustomed to the double forecast just because I knew what to expect. But it was definitely, when I forecasted for Norman and Oklahoma City for 3 years or so. And I got very used to only doing one forecast, one 7-day, really focusing on central Oklahoma, and that's it. And then come here and I'm like, oh, well, now I've got to do 2 7-day forecasts. I've got to take into account that Drake Field is going to be cooler because Drake Field, which is the NWS station, not the I would say the station, the NWS not like the office, but the actual weather station in Fayetteville is notoriously cold because it sits in a valley and it collects a lot of those cooler temperatures. We actually broke the all-time coldest temperature that ever recorded on Drake Field when we had that huge Arctic blast. We got down to -21, I think. So very cold. Definitely did help it that it was actually in the valley, but yeah, it is a little extra work. I wouldn't say twice as much work as another meteorologist working at a single station would be, but it's definitely something very unique that not a lot of people have ever had to deal with. Again, I don't really know if anybody else has ever done this, but it's just something that I've always been used to seeing. So whenever it's almost weird for me to see only one 7-day forecast, honestly.
So one thing you mentioned was that you are from the River Valley area, so you sort of are accustomed to the geography and the weather in that area. Do you know, or do you have any experience forecasting for an area where you're not familiar with, to where maybe the weather works a little differently than you're used to?
Well, I did. I mean, like I said, I was at Norman for a while, and it it felt easier, but I don't want to say it was easier in Norman because storms were a lot more predictable because there's no elevation change. Like there's no hills, there's no mountains. It's very predictable when it comes to topography. Here in the River Valley, I have literally seen storms get ripped in half by mountains and hills. Like it's just something that you if you don't factor in the topography, it's something that just makes absolutely no sense. I have watched a storm when I was younger. Probably the most vivid memory actually of it was we were in the direct sight of a tornado warned storm, and there was a tornado on the ground from that storm, and we were getting ready to go into the safe room, and we just saw a storm fall apart and split into two. And I just like, what was that about? And then I looked into it and I was like, oh, there was a mountain right there. It literally slammed into a mountain and got ripped apart. So that's something that really is also different that I would say someone would have to take into account if they were here. Mountains, the elevation increases. We're kind of on like I wouldn't say a plateau, but a plateau-like area in Northwest Arkansas where it's like you have that elevation increase. When you go from Northeast Oklahoma to Northwest Arkansas, there's like slight elevation. And that sometimes does mess with storms just a little bit. And there's also a slow incline from the River Valley to Northwest Arkansas, obviously, about, I'd say, it goes up by about 1,000 feet in about 75 miles. So it's a slow incline, but you can see Northwest Arkansas has not had a lot of massively dangerous storms. Meanwhile, the River Valley has had an F5 tornado once before. Actually, it was in my hometown in Spiro, Oklahoma. There was an F5 tornado in '76 and was the only tornado to kill somebody in LaFleur County as of right now. But you get those storms, and they interact with the increasing elevation, and those storms just start losing the organization because there's the ground is literally coming up from underneath them.
Interesting. So I guess the last major thing would be a lot of people are told in the broadcast world that knowing people is important. Did you do any sort of external internships outside of Nightly while you were here at OU? And did those internships help you land your job now?
A little bit. I wouldn't advise doing this because it may hurt your chances if you get attached to a certain place. I actually interned at KNWA, which is now my competing station. They're channel 2451 and we're channel 4029. So I was actually interned. I interned at a competing station here in our market, and luckily weather is not super competitive, unlike the administration. So they were able to. I imagine that my chief talked to my boss, who was the chief at the other station, was like, "Hey, how's this guy?" And he probably put in a good word for me because me and my mentor that I interned under had a pretty good relationship together. And also the rarity of being able to work in my home market also probably helped me in my situation, because if someone already knows, let's be generous, 1/4 of the city names, just being able to pronounce them is a huge advantage. It's like nobody would know how to pronounce Podo, spelled Poteau. It's a French name, and nobody would be able to look at that word and instantly, oh yeah, that's Podo. And other obscure things like Miami, like who would pronounce it Miami exactly? But yeah, it's like everybody's like, oh, that's Miami. I've literally like pulled people aside, like, especially at Nightly, I was like, listen, call it Miami from now on, or there will be pitchforks after you, because I've seen it happen. But those other factors probably also helped me. And I also got very lucky because I was literally looking on TV jobs one morning before one of our midterms on spring break. This was literally one of the last days I got to stay at OU before COVID forced us all out. It was the first listing on TV jobs, and I immediately applied for it. So definitely, if someone is out there looking for a job in the broadcast, tvjobs.com. It's like $50 to set up an account per year. Me and a couple other broadcast Mets, we split it. So we paid like $17 each, and we have it for a year. And we've already said like, yeah, we'll renew it whenever our contracts are up, because all three of us, our contracts are up in 3 years. So we're probably going to have like a nice little get together and say, all right, $17 each, send me your PayPal or something along those lines. But tvjobs.com, send in your resumes to Sinclair, Tegna, Nexstar. My company is Hearst, notoriously good company. We actually just got bonuses about a month ago. So having a bonus during COVID, that's kind of a crazy thing. Not really being a self-advertisement for Hearst or anything, but there are good companies, there are bad companies. Ask around, because it's all I can say. I can't really. I'm impartial because I work for a large company, but there's also the smaller companies and family-owned places. I know that there are the same thing as big companies. There are good, great family-owned companies. There are some not so great family-owned companies. Ask around. My best advice: don't go for the chief. Go for the weekend person. Go for the person that's like me, because we have a lot more time on our hands, and we're also, for me, if someone were to reach out to me for a job opportunity, I would know that, I was in that position a year ago. So I was like, yeah, I want to help them. Here's how I can here's how I can help them get their foot in the door, who I can tell them to get a hold of for this job opportunity. Go after people. Don't be afraid to email someone. If they've got their phone number, shoot them a text or give them a call or something along those lines. Get those connections established. If you don't have connections, get those connections established, and they will help you on the long run. That's for sure.
Awesome. Well, do you have anything else to add?
I guess one thing I was thinking about earlier was, how has your experience at OU prepared you for your experience at 4029?
Well, OU really did help me gain a lot of the resources I just didn't know about. I mean, prior to going to OU, I didn't know pivotal weather was a thing. And it's kind of dumb that I didn't know that. But pivotal weather is, the same thing you guys use for forecasting, I use. It's the exact same stuff. We actually don't even use AccuWeather anymore, because it was like $100 and something a month for a commercial license. So we just stopped using it. We use the NBM, numerical blended model. I imagine you guys probably use that as well. If you don't, you should. It's a really good model run. MOS data for the GFS, GFSX, and GFS 16. Pivotal weather, COD is really good for looking at satellite imagery. The same stuff you guys use, I use. So, OU really did help prepare for a lot of that. OU Nightly, if you are going to be part of the broadcast scene, you've got to go to Nightly. Like, you have got to be part of Nightly. It is a very basically irreplaceable source that you guys have completely free access to. If you're a freshman, get involved now. If you're a sophomore, you better get in it now. If you're a junior or senior, get into the game as soon as possible, because there are, last I checked, a lot more people were getting into it than ever before. And I know that Ken Fisher and Bob Dickey were really happy about that. And talk to both of those guys. They're the guys that are basically in charge of OU Nightly. That's all I could really say is get involved in OU Nightly. I didn't know. I'm kind of upset you guys are just now making the broadcast shift for OWL, because I didn't have that when I was there last year. So little on the jelly side for that one, but definitely get involved with OWL. They do a good job with helping you forecast, understanding the numbers. Class will obviously help you with that, but doing the forecasting, you don't do forecasting until synoptic as in senior year. So, well, I don't know anymore because you guys have changed up the whole program, but didn't forecast until senior year for me. So forecasting with OWL and on Nightly really did help. Luckily, it's a little bit, there are going to be differences even between Nightly. Like, Nightly is really good, but there are differences, especially with stress level. This is my experience so far. Nightly producers get very stressed very quickly. but not so much in the real world. Usually things are pretty chill unless things are like actually hitting the fan. Um, but again, it's just an invaluable resource. Nightly Owl, you guys have all these resources that you can use and you should use because they're irreplaceable. You're paying for them regardless of using them or not. So you better use them. That's all I could say.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Martin. We really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to come talk to us. Like I said, we got this recorded. We're going to share it with the rest of the shift. And yeah,
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
And no problem. I've got to be in at midnight for my next shift, so gonna have to.
Jeez.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I guess, how has this work affected like your sleep schedule? Because you're doing stuff at midnight, 3 a.m. How does that adjustment work?
All I can say, and this is probably also something that probably should be shared as well. Do not expect it to be easy. It's not going to be easy. I went from the morning shift to the weekend shift, and I'm back on the morning shift, all in 1 week. I worked 3 a.m. to noon on Monday. I had Tuesday off. Worked 1:45 to 10:45 p.m. on Wednesday and Thursday. I had kind of a Friday off. It doesn't feel like a day off, but it technically is. And I'm coming in at midnight, and I'm running a 12-hour shift till noon tomorrow, and then coming back in on Sunday, working 4 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it's just like, if there's weather, you're not going to have the same shift. If there's not weather, especially if you're going to be in the morning, which most of us sadly do start off in the mornings, you're going to have a hard time getting used to it. I used to be a late night dude. I used to stay up till 3 a.m. and I'd wake up at like 11 o'clock and get ready for my shift at like 1 o'clock. And I'm like, I love it. This is a good life. And now I'm waking up at 2 a.m. I'm waking up at 11 p.m. That's what I'm going to wake up today. I'm going to get 3 hours of sleep today. So sleep is something that I would say is very precious to a morning meteorologist, which again, most of us that start off your first job will be a morning meteorology job. Of all of my friends that we all got jobs, every one of us got a morning position, whether it be weekend or weekday, it was a morning. And every station's different. Like I have to get at the station at 2 a.m. on weekdays because we have a 4:30 a.m. newscast. Why? I don't know, but we do. So again, every station is different. My friend, she doesn't get up until 3 o'clock because her first newscast isn't until 5:30. So again, every station is different. It's just going to be what you're going to be expecting. So sleep is something you have to be very precious about. And don't be surprised if you get hit on for a double shift or, God forbid, a triple or quadruple shift, where we had a couple of those. And when you hit those, you sleep for a very long time afterwards. My record so far is 23 hours.
Wow. I couldn't even imagine.
I worked a quadruple shift that weekend. That is you work Saturday morning, Saturday evening, Sunday morning, and Sunday evening. So I was, huh?
Is that like common during severe weather days, or does that happen?
No. The instance that happened was our other weekend meteorologist left, and no one could fill in for the weekend, and they were like, and I think it was actually that we were already down a meteorologist, so we had 3 people. I had already worked 2 shifts, and they said, we need you to work both the Sunday shifts. I'm just like, I'm already dead. Might as well just kill me some more. So I worked a triple shift, and I slept all day Monday. I woke up, I don't remember what time I woke up. All I remember is that I woke up and I was like, what year is it? Because when you sleep for that long, you just don't know. You wake up dehydrated. You're like, am I alive? Am I dead? I don't know. I don't know what day it is. And I literally lost an entire day of my life. All of Monday was gone. But the overtime is nice. The overtime is very nice. Always see if you could try to slip that in. Unless you get salaried, always make sure you're getting overtime, because you will have a lot of overtime as a meteorologist. especially if you work in a crazy.
Well, that's all I got.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Martin. We appreciate it, and hope you get some sleep.
Yeah.
We're gonna hope so.